Welcome to Coast Vue. Hope you're having a great day. This is the show that every single day celebrates the men and women who are making coastal Mississippi such an amazing place to live, work, and play. Hey, listen, no big statements to make today. I'm curious about lots of things. And when I'm curious about things like, for example, the legislative reception and all kinds of cool things happening within the Coast Chamber, I call my friend Adele Lyons. So without any further ado, let me bring Adele Lyons in from the Mississippi Coast Chamber of Commerce and just first of all say good morning to you. How you doing, Adele?
Good morning. Been doing very well. And yourself?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you. You know, it's the beginning of the year, as I was just talking about with the mayor. Taped a show with Mayor Fofo Gillish before we had the opportunity to visit with you. We were talking about, well, you know, you get through the holidays and all the, you know, I know your family well, you know my family well, you know there's a lot of traditions. A lot of those traditions involve food and desserts and getting together and lots of that. And then you think you got that behind us, and then you start looking toward Lent and Mardi Gras. It just never stops, does it?
No, you get a little breather for a minute, but then you got to jump right back in.
So listen, we're there's some upcoming events we're going to talk about and all that. But what, just in general, as you think about the Coast Chamber at the beginning of the year, what kind of things go through your mind as you plan for the year?
Well, you know, we start with a new leadership, which is always exciting. And so Amber Olson with Next Staff and the United MSD Foundation is our president this year. Amber's been a chamber member for a really long time, been very involved in the community, gives back a lot. So it's exciting when you get new members, new leadership. Of course, you say farewell sort of to the ones that are moving on. So Sam Sandoz was our president last year. Sam also been involved with the chamber so long. So you kind of have that, it's like the first day of school kind of thing. You got a new teacher, you got new classmates, maybe folks that are on the board. But of course, we jump right in with the legislative reception. You know, that was last week, and big event, lots of folks, and lots going on in Jackson. So, you know, we just start right back up and get involved in it.
I've had the opportunity to visit with Amber a couple of times here on Coast Vue, but the work she's doing for the MSD Foundation and her daughter, what she's learned about advocacy, and I mean, her dogged determination to seek a cure for this very rare genetic form of disability that their daughter has. It really helps her. First of all, she's incredibly grounded, number one. She loves this community. But it does provide for her a lot of, like, I would say, process for leading an organization, you know, like the Mississippi Coast Chamber, because if you think about it, Coast Chamber is an advocacy group focused on business in the community. And I think she's going to be a terrific chairman.
Oh, absolutely. You know, she's a small business person. So we like to mix it up, of course. That's what our membership is. So we had a large company last year in the leadership role. This year it brings a small business person with just, you know, a handful of employees. They're trying to find jobs for folks in the community and work with employers to bring on folks. That's a great balance to have. And Amber brings a lot to the table.
So you're thinking about your new leadership team. And I think it's always, you know, you've got some folks that have been on your board for years, and you've got new folks coming on. You got a new chairman. But by the, you know, you spend a lot of time thinking about succession. So, you know, there's no jolt. You've got people that you know, and there's always a nice, orderly, and smooth transition of leadership. But that's one of the clarion calls for the chamber, is that you've had leaders involved for so many years that you don't miss a beat when you have transition, do you?
No, not at all. So, you know, for example, Sam had served as our treasurer for 5 years before he moved into the president role. Following Amber will be Eric Chambliss with Community Bank, who's been involved as the treasurer. He was chair of our investment committee. You know, again, years and years back, Eric was involved in the Long Beach Chamber, you know, Leadership Gulf Coast, a participant. So, and then Jennifer Lee with Island View is coming on as our treasurer. And again, Jennifer's been the past chair of the Gulfport Chamber. So, they get their feet wet and then move into these leadership roles. And that's what really keeps the chamber connected to the business community are these folks that choose to volunteer their time with this organization.
Yeah, that was actually my path onto the board for the Coast Chamber was through the Gulfport Chamber, active for years. The chairman of the Small Business Committee. We started, in fact, the ambassadors program when I was there, and then became chairman of the Gulfport Chamber, and eventually worked. You just kind of work your way up, and you learn. And you and I talked about it before. The more muscles that you use at the inside the trenches to learn about the community, by the time you get onto the board of the Coast Chamber and see the bigger picture and how all the pieces fit together, it makes for a very healthy chamber, doesn't it?
It does. Like I said, we like to have a good mix of folks geographically, from different industries, from different size businesses. We generally have some government or school district folks that are so involved in the community. People sometimes think, why do you have somebody from, say, the Gulfport schools on the board? Well, they're training the future employees of the community. So having those connections, there's a lot of opportunity. So if somebody's out there saying, hey, this sounds interesting, that's why you get involved with the chamber, and it can really help grow you professionally and personally from a leadership development standpoint of how to run a committee, how to run an event, how to run a board. Nonprofit board management, nonprofit management isn't that different than general business, management. It's just where the profits go. Ours go back into our program of work, and certainly for these businesses, it goes to the owners where it belongs.
I love the way you first of all, the diversity on the board is important. If you think about, for example, having people from a public school system involved in the board, and someone asking why would they be involved in the board, well, that's a two-way street there. I think it's important for the business community to be way more aware of what's happening, for example, at Gulfport School System, for example, with the work that they're doing to attach to and listen to the business community, the kind of programs that they're developing there. I mean, Gulfport School System is one of the most innovative school systems in America. I talked about it. We did a live remote there, a few months ago. I had an opportunity to go and visit and spend some time walking around. And I actually literally described it as Universal Studios, because you have a media lab that's as good as any media lab I've been in at any university. You've got a retail store where people can literally run a retail store. You've got an auto area where they can do auto work, and it looks as good as any new car dealer, auto area where they do repair and such. They've got their little kitchen, their incredible commercial grade kitchen, right, is the best of the best. And Emerald Lagasse could go there and cook and go bam and be happy doing it. I mean, it's just, that's what's happened. And they're teaching skills that much earlier in kids' lives in high school, so they can really begin to understand what do they want to do when they get out. And then you think about the partnerships with Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College, and then you can't help but start to think about what Mary Graham and her team is doing with over 50% of the students there in non-traditional education now, because they're listening to Ingalls and Chevron and all these companies. Man, it's incredible. But, again, the opportunity on your board to share that knowledge and begin to understand how tightly connected strategically these organizations are, this is what builds a better Mississippi. This is what builds a better Gulf Coast, isn't it?
Absolutely. Prior to coming to the chamber, I worked with Habitat for Humanity, and I can remember having someone say, why would Habitat, a nonprofit that's, affordable housing, why are you paying for a chamber membership? And I said, well, who we want on our board is business people. Who we want to volunteer to help build Habitat homes are business people. You know where our homeowners are coming from? It's the employers, it's the employees of these companies that maybe need that assistance in cleaning up their finances and figuring out how to purchase a home. Why wouldn't we be a member of a business organization? So, we have a lot of nonprofits that are members, and a lot of, like I said, government agencies or school districts or the community college. We're all part of the same community, all moving towards the same goal.
Networking is key. We'll get into something that took place this morning. We'll come back to that here in just a second. But hey, why don't we do this? I didn't realize we were at the end of this segment. We'll talk about some upcoming events. We'll look back a little bit on why the legislative reception that the Chamber has historically sponsored. A lot of work there. It's such an important early event in the legislative session, why that's important. We'll talk about that with Adele Lyons, the Executive Director and I guess the Chief Operating Officer for Coast Chamber. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to Coast Vue. You'll get tired of me saying this, but when you think about the chambers of coastal Mississippi, every single one of them, they are not your grandfather's or your father's chamber. They certainly continue to do the work of the traditional chamber, but the work that they do around leadership development, around networking, around legislative affairs, around building better communities, and the list goes on and on from there, is, they've really evolved over the years. They're such an important part of our community. So if you're not a member of a chamber, I would urge you to consider becoming a member, because this is where the rubber hits the road in our community. Legislative reception that happened last week. We've, the chamber for so many years has had a lot to say grace over as it relates to that, but it's been worth it, hasn't it?
Absolutely. And, let me say that is a joint effort of some businesses that are involved in that committee, the chambers, the business councils. So we get a lot of credit for that, and we certainly are involved, but it's not our show. But happy to be there. Always a great event. Always, just interesting to see who's there, the delegations from all over the coast and all over the state. And then the business people that take their time to drive up to Jackson and spend the evening making sure the coast has a voice and is seen and heard in Jackson. And we're early on in the session, so right there at the beginning when they get in, everybody's fresh and full of energy, and the coast is there with so much seafood, plenty to eat, plenty to drink, lots of interaction going on. It's just always been a stellar event.
So networking, again, networking is key, bringing leaders together from all over the state and reminding them how important the coast of Mississippi is as an economic engine to the rest of the state. And, the other thing is you've got a lot of legislators who've been there for many years. We've got a lot of new legislators. And so the opportunity to really impress upon them who's involved in leadership in coastal Mississippi as they sort of mingle with one another and you see sort of who's in this room and how well it's done. It makes an impression on you. What a great way for coastal Mississippi to start the session. Hey, this morning you had a chamber table networking event, but it can be as big as a legislative reception or small as a breakfast, but they're all important, aren't they?
Yeah, we really spend a lot of energy putting together networking events where people just come and mingle, meet each other, exchange business cards. Yes, business cards are still a thing. They're still around. They still work. Coast Roast is a smaller venue. People can grab a cup of coffee, spend 15 or 20 minutes there, and then go on to work. Or some people come and stay for the full hour. Those are important way to visit different of our members and our businesses, but giving an opportunity for people to come together. And we have learned you got to do that at different times. You got to do them morning, noon, and night, for people have different schedules. And so the breakfast ones will have a different crowd than the evening after 5 type event. But networking is really what it's all about, making those connections.
And then this coming Thursday, January the 12th, 5 to 7, at the O'Keeffe Museum that you and I worked really hard on in the early days. Yep. You're having a celebration of art and culture, and it's part of the Legacy Business League. Remind people what the Legacy Business League is, and then tell them about this celebration of art and culture.
The Legacy Business League is really a kind of a minority business group that comes together. They also do some professional development and training, some networking opportunities. This is really a joint effort between a whole bunch of folks for the Martin Luther King celebrations that happen. We're at the Orr Museum. It's the Legacy. It's the chamber, the city of Biloxi, and it's an after 5 event. So it's a way to come together and, add a little culture that we maybe normally don't have at an after 5 event. It would be at somebody's business, but certainly a great venue and a great opportunity to visit, meet, and mingle with folks.
My son Justin was in town from New York City. He had brought his girlfriend down with him, and they spent a day just enjoying the coast, and they spent a lot of time in Biloxi, and they went to the O'Keeffe Museum, and they took a lot of pictures while they were there, but they were deeply impressed with that museum. I think they've done a great job of keeping it fresh and having such a wonderful, diversity of exhibits. It's a special place, isn't it?
It really is. And I'm very proud of having been a part of that. I was on that board for 10 years. And the beginning of that construction, I remember like it happened yesterday when Frank Gehry first came and he walked the property. And that's where he came up with the kind of the term of the buildings would dance with the trees. And he sort of walked around and just was taking it all in. And I can remember that like it just happened. And then through construction, and then, of course, through disaster and a barge being on top of the buildings after Katrina to getting it rebuilt. So it's nice to visit there and have those memories.
So Connections is coming up. It's quarterly update on coast issues and efforts. This time it's featuring the Mississippi Department of Employment and Security. Tell me more about that.
Well, I think most people don't even know Mississippi Department of Employment Security, what it is. Most people refer to it as the unemployment office. But that certainly we're going to have somebody come in and talk from their agency about the different employment programs that they have available, about retention, about some of the laws and legislation that's involved with, a lot of folks have people who show up for an interview and then maybe start for a day and then don't come back, and why does that happen and what happens to those folks and how does that affect you as a business. So I think it's important for us to have some of those state agencies come in and give us some updates. We've got that on the schedule as well for January.
And that is on January the 18th. It's a Wednesday. That's going to be at the Night Nonprofit Center.
Yes.
The Night Nonprofit Center, what a special thing that we have in this community, that all these nonprofits can be housed in one big building that you and I were deeply engaged in as well around that. Yeah. But man, it's great to see that come to fruition in the way that it is, isn't it?
Well, it's really been such a success story. And we have had calls from other chambers, other folks around the country of, how do we pull that off? And, some of that is, good things did come from Katrina. And this is probably a real shining star of that. But it's packed to the gills. We've got every closet, every space filled with nonprofits. Folks are in and out of here all day at a variety of meetings in the various meeting space. And then again, the main thing is just the synergy of being able to walk down the hall and I can visit with the Boys and Girls Club, the United Way, and have those conversations. And again, like we talked about connectivity and working together, they're right here in the building. Couldn't be any more convenient.
So, of course, speed networking is coming up on January the 20th at 8 a.m. Boy, so people enjoy that, don't they?
People love it. And it's kind of like musical chairs where folks sit and talk with each other. We blow a whistle, ring a bell, you get up and move and talk with someone else, and you do this over and over again. You really got to have your elevator pitch down. And if you don't have it down, you will have it down by the end of this hour of doing this, talking about yourself and your business and what's important for folks to know. If you've got some folks in your business that are a little intimidated about networking and going to events to connect with folks, this is probably a good starting point for them to really get their feet wet and move on. So people love that. We do this when we do speed networking a couple times a year.
Coast Young Professionals continues to hit on every cylinder, and you've got the launch annual meeting coming up on January the 25th. But, Bar, aren't you proud of the Coast Young Professionals?
I am. They really had a fantastic year last year, brought in a lot of new members. Their goal is to bring in 100 new members this year. Now, of course, their membership rotates. People sort of age out and move on, but it's a great starting point. Their launch event is really a look back at what's been accomplished, a look forward of what they're looking to do for this year. And so They also give a couple of awards at that. MVP, somebody gets inducted into the Hall of Fame. And those are names of folks who really have invested in our community in so many different ways. But it's really a great starting point. If you've got some young professionals, if you're a young professional getting going in your career, this is a great place to get started.
Again, networking and celebration, and actually got live music and some great food. So
fun. We got to have fun too, Ricky.
I know, got no doubt about it. And Coast Young Professionals have a bit of a reputation for knowing how to have fun too. So that's cool.
Yeah.
That's on Wednesday, January the 25th. And then Chamber Table Networking coming up on February the 1st.
Yeah, we're right back into it. We're doing these generally on a monthly basis. That will be at the Almanac for lunch. Again, our theory here at the Chamber is you got to eat lunch. So why not eat with folks you don't know, or get to know some folks better, get to know a business a little bit better. That's a beautiful location there right in downtown Gulfport, right there near the beach. Enjoy some good food and make some connections.
Speaking of Mississippi Coast Community College, in less than a minute, with over 50% of their students being non-traditional that I mentioned a few minutes ago, the Career Pathways experience is coming up on February the 9th.
Yeah, just quick. That is really for parents to come and participate and understand that, these technical development programs can help really have these kids find some really good jobs, and their parents don't have to push them towards college. It may not be for them. This may be another pathway.
And one of my conversations with Mary Graham, one of their diesel programs, you come out of there making $100,000 plus out of this program. Good Lord, the opportunities are enormous. This has been Adele Lyons from the Coast Chamber. It's been terrific to visit with you, Adele.
Good to see y'all.
You bet. When we come back, we'll have Mayor Jay Willis from Pascagoula. We'll see you after this.